My nightmare husband left me bleeding because his mother was triggered and needed him more than I did. Now, he's grieving and begging me to come back. My mother-in-law once told me that she wanted my unborn child to call her mom. Her reasoning? I'm more important to my son than you. There's only one thing you can give him that I can't. She even claimed she could have another baby herself if she wanted, and being pregnant didn't make me special. She genuinely believed that I had stolen her son from her and that I didn't deserve to be called a mother. When I was 14 weeks pregnant, I had a terrible fall. My mother-in-law had cluttered our living room with her belongings, using our home as a storage space. I tripped over her mess and landed hard on my belly. About 20 minutes later, I began to miscarry. She was there when it happened, and she knew what was going on. I was calling, crying, and shouting from the bathroom, desperately trying to get my husband's attention. He came in, saw blood seeping through my shorts, and said he urgently needed to help his mother. He left me there, and I miscarried alone. I held the remains in my hands, begging him through text to come back and be with me, to hold me, to help me get through this. He finally came in after half an hour and saw the blood everywhere. I was anemic and couldn't even stand anymore. His first comment was about how much of a mess it was going to be to clean up. I felt so hopeless. I stripped off my clothes and climbed into the shower, continuing to bleed. I asked him to buy me large pads and told him I would clean up. He came back half an hour later with the pads, all the while explaining how his mother needed him. They both knew I was miscarrying, but apparently, her urgent need to move things took priority. After I cleaned up the bathroom, I made my way to the kitchen, feeling weak and struggling to stay upright. My mother-in-law didn't look at me or say a word, probably because she knew she had one. She had managed to take my husband away from me, during one of the most traumatic moments of my life, and he went willingly. I felt so lost. That night, he spent the night at his mother's house, leaving me alone. I was left to care for his children from a previous relationship without any support. He didn't text me, and I didn't reach out either. My heart was shattered. I confided in my family, and they were horrified when they heard what happened. They were also hurt that I hadn't reached out for help when it was happening. They booked me a ticket home, and I packed my things and left. He still hadn't responded to any of my texts, voicemails, or calls, so I left him a handwritten note and flew to my family. A few days later, I received a long text from him. He explained that he had to stay with his mother for the entire week after I miscarried in our home because she was triggered by my miscarriage and needed his emotional support. He said he didn't want to bring up my name in front of her, as it would distress her further, so he chose to have no contact with me. He believed I was strong enough to wait for him. He accused me of overreacting by flying home and insisted that I return. But I was ready for his excuses. I didn't let him manipulate me. I bluntly told him that what he did was medical neglect during a crisis and abandonment of both his children and me. I could have died. I told him I needed space to heal. He tried to justify his actions by saying he was in shock and grieving, and didn't comprehend what was happening at the time. He regretted how he handled things and said that I had also left him to grieve alone. But I was finally receiving emotional support from my family and was in a safe place. He argued that he was his mother's only son and had to help her. I reminded him that he was my only husband, and I needed him. The miscarriage was happening to me, not her. He then asked if we were still okay. I told him bluntly, absolutely not. I couldn't see a way to repair our relationship after what he did. His actions would haunt me for years to come. Every night, I cried myself to sleep, mourning the loss of my baby and my marriage. Both of them had died on the same day. He was devastated, saying that I was being overly emotional because of the loss and that I wasn't in my right mind. He offered to fly out and bring me home. I handed the phone to my parents and let them deal with him. I'm not sure what they said, but he didn't call back after that. Since then, he sent numerous texts and voicemails, alternating between reminiscing about happy memories, blaming me for what happened, expressing anger at my silence, and offering apologies. He's even posted on social media, saying he misses me and is waiting for me to come home, painting it as if we're in a long-distance relationship instead of acknowledging that we're separated. A week ago, a neighbor spotted him waiting outside my family's home and called the police. He left before they arrived, but it made me anxious and scared. I'm constantly on edge, worried he might show up or peer through a window. My father has a lawyer ready to help me with the divorce proceedings.